if you're talking about like in the scenario where you have not been proactive with your contract ownership and you're now in a lawsuit, you're probably not going to get out of that lawsuit for less than, I'm going to say $25,000 to $50,000. And that's probably on a good day. If it gets real contentious and you have to really fight, it's going to be upwards of $75,000 to just get out of the lawsuit. And by the way, when I say that number, I'm just talking about attorney fees. I'm not talking about what you may actually ultimately having to pay out to the other side as a settlement or a judgment.
Yeah. Expert witnesses,
100%.
You know, all the rest of it that goes with it. So, but in terms of hours, what does that compute to in terms of hours?
Oh gosh, Gavin, you're asking me to do math? I went to law school, so I didn't have to do math. I mean, well, here, I got a calculator in front of me.
Okay, so would one person be dedicated to a contract for X amount of days, or for, you know, would it be full on for like a 2-month period, or what?
No, so that's the frustrating part about litigation. So that number would be spread out over the lifetime of the litigation. So when I said earlier, when I was talking about my client and that catastrophic loss that they were facing, that lawsuit lasted like 4 years. So that number is spread out over time. It's not often going to be a giant lump sum at the beginning, because that's the nature of litigation. It's like you'll have some months where I bill you barely anything because there's just not anything happening in the lawsuit for a variety of reasons.
Unfortunately for the contractor, we're completely, you know, hands up. We have to hand you over a blank invoice for you to decide what number you're going to put on that. And I know that, you know, I'm not saying that's going to be manipulated by any means, because, you know, we're all here to do a job and we don't want to ruin a business that's trying to fight for its life, because that's not a good thing. That's not a good result for you guys either. But I suppose what we're trying to say here is, you know, minimum you're looking at a 50 grand issue per case, and that's just a starting point. So
yeah, and I think the real cautionary part of that is understanding that by the time if you end up in an actual dispute and there are attorneys involved, you can only control 1/2 of the bill. And by that, what I mean is we have no control over what the other side decides to do. And if they decide to do something, oftentimes we have no choice but to then respond, because otherwise we're now putting your case in jeopardy. So that's why when my clients ask me for a litigation budget, it's always a range, because I say, okay, well, we can make the strategic decision to do our side on a shoestring, but you need to know that if the other side decides to do all of these things, destructive testing, expert witnesses, you know, all of these things that are very expensive, we can't sit back and do nothing and just let that happen. We have to then engage as well. And so if let's say you've got a David and Goliath type of situation where you've got a huge flush GC on one side and a small mom and pop guy on the other, a strategy is to outspend. They could make the strategy of like, we're going to do every single thing that the legal code allows us to do.
We're going to bury you.
Exactly. Because we can absorb that cost. It's not going to hurt us, but we know this guy can't play that game. He can't keep up.
I was just thinking of that, yeah. So that's so like, and that's just the way the system is, and that's the way it is worldwide. That's not specific California. So if I'm the big general contractor, I'm going to say, right, you want to fight? We have the time and we have the resources to just stretch this thing out until such a stage as you're not actually physically doing any work because you're spending more time trying to fight this case. And that's so sad.
I know. And the other part of it that's like so inequitable about it is, in my experience, GCs are far more likely to have in-house counsel than subcontractors are. So it's not even costing them anything. They're paying that person their salary regardless of what they're doing. So why not have them try to bury you? It's not costing them anything extra. Whereas the subcontractor is less likely to have that person. So they're paying somebody like me, who's an outside attorney that they've hired, and now they're paying me hourly.
Yeah. It really is. And the other part of it as well, if the general contractor has a really good, strong case, even though they're in the wrong, they might say, let's ramp this up because there's an element of doubt, and the element of doubt favors us over over the people that are trying to attack us in terms of getting money off us. So I'm sure then that they leverage that, and I'm sure you've seen plenty of cases of that where, as you say, they're just throwing up the billable hours, and you're sitting on the other side going, oh my God, these guys are paying for doctors and engineers and all this kind of stuff to come in here. Who's going to pay for that bill?
Absolutely.